About 10 years ago, I started planning my future by writing a letter from my future self back to my present self, telling me what was going on and how I got there. These letters from my future self had some sort of confidence-building power in them. I believed them. And then, when I cross-checked them years later, most of the stuff had actually transpired. Not always on the exact timeline, and not always exactly as written, but certainly much had come to pass as my future self indicated it would. Was it confirmation bias? Likely that was involved. But still, there was something about this capacity that I wanted to test and know more about.
It tickles when she does that.
As an experiment and an invitation, I asked people in my community if they were willing to write a similar letter to themselves, and I added a layer of chance. The age of self they would write to would be determined by lottery. People from ages 9 to 90 received a number between 0 and 130 picked out of a hat. Since it's quite possible that human lifespan will soon reach 130, I thought I better include it. By introducing chance, the participants would randomly be writing in ways that either gave them a view of the future or a way to reframe the past. I didn't want to make it hard. I asked for about 200 to 400 words, something that wouldn't take long to write, and if they read it aloud, would be about 2 minutes long. I was astounded when I read the letters. They were so beautiful, so kind, so remarkable, so wise. Each one felt like a miracle of mental time travel, done with the company of a loving internal spirit guide. The willingness, brilliance, and generosity of each participant deeply moved me, and moved people who got a chance to hear the letters. The concept caught the interest of prominent voices in neuroscience and psychology in the UK and the US. I've chosen 9 short letters for you to listen to at this point. Please settle in to enjoy them. Dr. Tara Swart and Dr. Jamie Pennebaker watched them too. We'll return to hear their thoughts on what goes on in the mind of someone who writes a Dear Me letter. These 2 people wrote letters to their younger selves.
Hello, dear Margaret, my 30-year-old younger me. Let me whisper in your ear as you sit there in your assigned plane seat, one of hundreds flying across the Pacific, crossing from one continent to another, passing from summer to winter. Very soon your long journey north will be over. You'll see Vancouver through the cabin windows, a sprawling city at the foot of the coastal mountains, ribbons of water shining in the winter light. Of course, your feelings are mixed. Love is often like that. Desire to be with him again, excitement about shared times and new adventures, but doubts too, and the sorrow of letting go of so many difficult goodbyes. What the hell am I doing? I can hear you thinking. What have I done? Listen, Margaret, take a breath or two. Let go of the mental chatter, still that monkey mind. You've tossed these thoughts around for weeks, for months. Don't second guess yourself today. Today is about joy and optimism and togetherness. Remember, what you're doing is good and right and brave. You're stepping away from your familiar for a shot of happiness. You're grabbing at something wonderful and reeling it in. Trust me, you'll find your way together. You'll fall in love too with a new way of life and learn to live far from cities and crowds and far from the ocean. You'll make a new home near forested mountains and rivers and lakes and marvel at the beauty of Canada's changing seasons. Close your eyes now and picture him waiting for you, watching the clock double-checking your arrival time, moving through the crowded airport to your arrival gate, thinking about your last time together. Now open your eyes, my brave girl, and look outside the cabin window. Look down, study the landscape, commit it to memory. British Columbia and a new life are rushing up to reach you.
Anytime. Sure.
Dear me, I'm writing to you before your birth. You will soon leave your tube-fed, watery world and be born into a world of air. Your name will be Terence. The name Grace will take on new meaning in your future. You are number 6 of 9 children. You will move many times in your life, too many to keep track of. Raised in dysfunction, you will be a survivor of many abuses. Though you are a survivor of the highest order, you will not know how to live. Those skills will come later. You will know the struggles and pain of the darker side of human existence. You will leave home young and cope poorly. You will be part of bringing a beautiful girl into the world and then march further into the darkness. At the darkest place, you will finally surrender and ask for help. That name, Grace, now means something profound, the undeserved gift from the Creator of all things. You will be born again into a world of the Spirit. You will be given tools to live a good life. You will have a new attitude and outlook on life. You will see how the cosmic energies have conspired to keep you alive and bring you to your proper place. On your journey, you will find hidden artistic talents within. You will make a 20-year career of selling your art to people from around the world. Your daughter will have children of her own, 2 beautiful boys. You will enjoy playing with the boys, and they will call you Grandpa Terra. There's that Grace again. You will have come full circle from your long walkabout back to family and live the authentic life. You will have the tools to live a day at a time and be in the moment. When you forget, the grandboys will remind you to be here now. You will see how the tragedies of your life can be turned into pure gold when you share with fellow sufferers. I have the advantage of knowing how the story of your life turns out. Rest easy, build up your strength, your tenacity, march to your own drumbeat. Shine on, you crazy diamond. You are loved and admired and full of promise. March 2022, Terry.
Maybe I wanted to do this project because I've kept a journal since I was a child. I started very early, not because I was drawn to writing. It was an antidote to loneliness. My family was very close-knit. My parents were immigrants, and while they were progressive and integrated well in the community, they maintained some protective distance to keep their own culture and values intact. That way, they could belong to both worlds. But as their offspring, it led us to not really belonging to either. We kids lived in a liminal, in-between space, populated by just the 3 of us sisters. Our Earth was our 2 parents, and we were astronauts on a satellite, alone in space. And then, the 2 of them went to new planets. My eldest sister left for university when I was 7, and my middle sister left when I was 9. So there I was, floating in space, alone. 9. My daughter is 9. I would never want her to feel that way. So I did what humans are uniquely capable of doing. I created company from imagination. I created a way to be safely seen and heard. I started to write. In this unchosen solitude, the ink flowing became the voice I invented to care for me when I felt no one else would. Writing became the key way I knew myself, my eternal self, and remains so to this day. When your strength is born of your trauma, as is the case with 99.9% of people, I think, and you really start to see that, you begin to wonder what else might be possible. So then the question becomes, how do you turn pain into power? How do you turn a scar into a mark of beauty? How do you look into the future with trust? Well, it seems writing can help you access another strength inside of you. That's what these participants did. They wrote from their present selves to their future selves.
Three, two, one.
Dear 60-year-old me, you'll find life absolutely no different than 55-year-old me. Probably more gray hairs, more dad bod, more aches and more pains. But with age comes acceptance. You're not the stud you once were, more like a sheet of weathered plywood, fraying at the edges, still doing the job, still hanging in there and still making a difference. But you're no stud. Except in a few people's eyes, and that is all that matters. Your kids will still look up to you and see some kind of great person that you can't imagine how that got into their heads. You know that if it came to a fight, you can still protect your family, and really, you've learned enough to put most people on their asses. That's good. But you do know you'll spend the next few weeks or months with a chiropractor and regretting it. Reality and pragmatism has settled in, and you have a new sense of acceptance of yourself, the world, and everything. In your early 50s, you dealt with the stress of getting older. Every cramp that made you fear that this was the big one is replaced by thinking, at least I won't wither away in a hospital. I suppose at 60 you will look forward to 65 and getting a full pension. Grandpa Johnny Black died at 65 and never got his first check. Damn it all anyways. Funny thing is, you won't even care. At 60, you've already lived a long, hard, and good life. Most people could not cram a book with all the memories that you've made. You fought the good fights. You brawled with brothers, and with brothers at your side. You heard enough to know what love really is, and you heard enough people to have both regrets and satisfaction. Few people in this world have actually vanquished enemies. You have, and you did it with style. You also got your ass kicked enough times to learn what humility really is. You found love and somehow ended up with a family who not only loves you back, but will always be there for you. You will look after them when they are hurt, sick, or afraid, and they will do the same for you. That's gold, baby. I think it only gets better from here. Pride finally died and was rightfully replaced by humor and compassion. It's not about you anymore. It's about those around you and making them feel great about themselves. You've been given gifts like insight and perception, and now is the time to use them and find out what others need and help them fill a void. Sure, you may last another 30 years like your pa, but you may go tomorrow, and you have to be ready for that. Many, many good people you know will have passed by now into the great beyond. Live and be strong. Be audacious. Be funny. Make people laugh and feel good. Your mark on this world is made, my friend, as much as it ever will be. So just enjoy the rest of your life and love with every bit of your being those amazing souls that surround you.
Dear 80-year-old Hans, I'm writing this letter to you from a trip I'm currently taking to Germany, the country I left 24 years ago when I immigrated to Canada. This trip feels different from visits taken in the past, before the COVID pandemic and before the war in Ukraine. I went by myself this time. I booked this trip kind of spontaneously after discovering that my German passport will expire in April, and to see my 92-year-old mum while she's still up and running, and to spend some time with my siblings. All these ever-changing COVID rules and regulations caused me quite some stress, till I finally had the boarding pass in my hands. Once in my seat, heading to Frankfurt from Seattle, I was able to relax and also wondering how this pandemic has added to my overall stress level and why and how I allow this to happen. I do feel very grateful for living in small town BC and how very sheltered we are here. I feel so lucky and blessed. It is great that I came to Germany at this point in time and that I'm able to have close visits with my mom, siblings, and close friends. It is nice to be able to go for walks with my mom and to enjoy some homemade German kuchen in a coffee shop. I am glad to be here and to be able to give my siblings a tiny break looking after my mom. And then there's this ongoing war in Ukraine that seems so much closer here than in Canada. My mom has a hard time watching the news these days. It brings up a lot of trauma for her as she was fleeing from Russian troops as a teenager at the end of World War II. It's unbelievable that such an atrocity is happening in this time and age. I feel ashamed and appalled to be part of a species that allows this to happen. I often doubt in humanity and I feel depressed. And then I feel encouraged seeing the strength and resilience of Ukrainian citizens. It reminds me of a Bible verse, and now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love.
You might think this ability comes from some kind of wisdom of lived experience, but actually teenagers were able to do this too. Just listen to what came back from these two young people, and imagine what it will be like when they read these letters again when they are actually 50, or 130 as the case may be.
Hey Owen, this is you from 34 years ago. I've written a bit of a letter to remind you of where you were at during your 16th year of your life and your later teenage years. While leaving the city I had lived in my whole life had its own difficulties, such as new location and loss of friendships and relationships with others, there have been new experiences that I wouldn't trade anything for. The difference that I've noticed when comparing a larger city such as Abbotsford to a smaller town like Creston is the greater feeling of welcomeness and inclusivity. Almost everyone I've spoken to here seems to respect me and show me more kindness than I've ever been given in Abbotsford. The togetherness felt in the community is amazing. Oftentimes people just walk up to me and spark up conversation even though I haven't seen them prior to that day. It's that type of positive, friendly experience that makes me want to give back to those people in the community, because you can tell the people of Creston care. Now that we're up to date, I want you to take a moment to reflect on a few things about yourself. Firstly, I want you to reflect on the present. Think about what is happening in your life right now that affects you, whether positive or negative. Are there aspects of your life that you feel you are stuck with? Are there changes you need to make for your physical or mental health to improve? Change is difficult, but when you get around to change, you might just become happier and more satisfied with yourself. Because why would you willingly stay in a situation that negatively affects you? You and you alone have the power to change, so what are you waiting for? The second thing should be easy. Simply look back on where you came from. Be grateful for your friends, family, teachers, doctors, counselors, and anyone else who encouraged you in times of empowerment, as well as anyone who was there to help you in times of struggle. Also, make sure to appreciate the work you put in as well. Now recall all of your achievements. How do you take these learnings to better yourself as a person? Lastly, think about the future. Are you heading in the direction you want to be aimed towards? Are you leading yourself or being led by others? Take charge of your life. Nobody knows what you need as much as you. Sometimes you have to look out for number one, and that's okay. Pick up a hobby, try something new, travel the world. What have you got to lose? Nothing. But what have you got to gain? A whole lot. Because what else is life about? Make yourself the best you can be. Treat others right and live life to the fullest. That's all there is to it.
Dear 130-year-old me, I wonder about all the things you've seen and all the places you've gone. I know intuitively that you will be different from the self I am now, that you will have experienced life to the fullest, a life I can't even imagine at this time. Traveled to Peru, Japan, Iran, Scotland, Spain, taken in the culture of the world and wrote it in your mind and bones. I know you'll have experienced love, romantic and platonic, both heartbreaking and joyful. I hope you don't regret it, because I know, even now, that every love is worth it. I hope whoever you choose to spend your life with makes you genuinely happy, and you cherish every second with them. I hope you still dance in the kitchen and make all sorts of disasters, take walks in the park, and enjoy the simplest pleasures. Maybe you will have children, maybe you won't. Either way, I hope you found some way to carry on your legacy and make a name for yourself. Not through fame, but through memory, kind memories. I want to be remembered. I want you to be remembered as the person who always smiled warmly and built people up. I know you will know loss, the kind that destroys you, but I also believe you will push forward and survive it. It may be the loss of friends or family. It may be the loss of yourself, your body. I hope you grieve in time, but don't let it control you. Be kind to yourself. Write their stories down and sing them to the sky or sing them to yourself. Immortalize them in your own way. You will be a different person. Will you still have the same name? Or will you intertwine it with someone else's and grow a new branch? When you're 130, shockingly alive or on your deathbed, will you look back at all the things you wrote when you were 17 and 12 and 5 and remember? In your old bones and tired head, remember what you felt like at 17. Please remember. All the love of your 17-year-old self, Reese.
I hope by this point you are as amazed by the Dear Me letters as I was. What struck me is how universal this ability is, and how this writing method taps into the love, kindness, and knowing inside all of us. Our last two letters come from future selves writing to participants in the present.
Dear me, you are 89 and I am 100, so we're both old. Who is it said the pen is mightier than the sword? I understand that you began your autobiography last August and recently acquired the printed version in book form. You have 2 infant great-granddaughters and sometimes worry about their future. It is that time of year when some people hope the snow has finished for the winter. You are hoping we get more to diminish the risk of forest fires during summer. A climatologist, Catherine Hayhoe, says we need to talk about climate change. We have to find common ground with people who still say it is not caused by people. Educated or not, it seems that logical thought processes are, more often than not, overcome by our emotions and long-term habits. Pretty scary. Do you think we're too old to effect significant change? It wasn't so long ago that a British centurion raised millions for healthcare by walking round and round his house with the help of his walker. Want to work with me? Let's talk. Are you free for lunch on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week? I hope to hear from you soon. Sincerely, Julie Ewash, and take care.
Wow, it is hard to believe that I am 90 years old. Oh, what a beautiful life I have lived. I would have to say, looking back, my 30s, probably the decade of greatest change. So much happened in my life. I went through pregnancy, motherhood, separation, working full-time as a single mom, purchasing my first home, learning to love myself, and falling in love with someone who would become my husband. It seemed so hard at times. I struggled, hurt, and cried. Other times, everything seemed to be going according to plan. I smiled brightly and laughed hard. I made some amazing new friends and grew closer to older ones, while dismissing those that no longer served me. I found and became my most authentic self. I healed wounds that had been inflicted over the course of my life, sometimes gracefully and quiet, and sometimes with the power of Kali. I look back and remember the growth I had. After becoming a mom and having my son's father break my heart and crush my self-confidence, I was lost and left feeling alone. Despite my heartache, I worked towards building myself up. And by golly girl, you did it. What you must know, Kayla, from your much older, much wiser self, is that you are good enough. You deserve love and happiness, and dreams do come true. Work hard and never ever give up.
The final Dear Me letter was transformative in both content and style. I think this participant spoke in a way his younger self would listen to.
Dear me, it's hard to say, but I'm telling you this is only one page. Use the rage, break the cage, it's only one day. Stay brave, keep it up, bring your head up. Never mind that, remain the hero. On the pages leading to the book that constitutes you, who you're bleeding to be. Don't you see, it's all inside me. You, it's simply gotta be that guy in the mirror. You see, that guy standing there? It's gotta be you to tell him he's gonna make it through. No one to prove but you. Who knew? Come through into a feeling inside that no matter what, you'll be alright. Fight but relax, it'll be alright. Just might find a light deep inside. Help you see through the night. Keep sight on the right past the mend. Bend, help guide the world around your heart. Don't part, rebuild proper thought. Doubt doubts itself after all. Don't bawl, crawl if you must. There's a way out. Don't pout, shout for something else. Something to the sound of bells inside your mind. Chimes that signify finding the flow that intertwines, binds, makes you feel alive. Inside, don't cry, it's only one day. Stay brave, keep it up, bring your head up. Never mind that, remain the hero on the pages and say, dear me, it's hard to say, but I'm telling you this is only one page. Use the rage, break the cage, it's only one day. Stay brave, keep it up, bring your head up. Never mind that, remain the hero within the book that took your name, planted it on the first page. Many came before, but now it's your turn. Return the honor left on the shelf behind. Sign every mistake, claim it as yours. Careful with time, you'll find gems inside. Don't mind the fad, the crime, the times you'd hide, the times you acted rash, flashback. Be thankful that you're strong enough to make it through the new you wish never got a reality lift. Sometimes you get bit, take the hit. Sorry man, you're not perfect, that's it. You're you, so that'll have to do. And say, dear me, it's hard to say, but I'm telling you this is only one page. Use the rage, break the cage, it's only one day. Stay brave, keep it up, bring your head up. Never mind that, remain the hero.
So that's what came back from this initial experiment. I am now sure that anyone can write a Dear Me letter and that it's a beneficial process. But I wanted to know why. I had questions. What's happening in the brain when writing these letters? What's the benefit of going forwards in time? What's the benefit of going backwards in time? What's the impact of introducing the lottery, the element of chance? I went to London, England to speak with neuroscientist Dr. Tara Swart to find answers. She was able to explain the neurochemical effects of writing a Dear Me letter.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I feel so grateful and privileged to have been able to watch it with you and to be part of this. It was very emotive. I cried, obviously, as you saw. I probably watched it in two ways. I watched it as a human being who it had an emotional impact on, and I watched it as a neuroscientist that was trying to work out, you know, what's going on here. In one form, it's visualization, because you're basically imagining or visualizing a different version of you, or a version of you that hasn't happened yet. Let's just talk about writing to an older version of you. If your brain hasn't experienced something before, it's seen as a threat. When you start thinking about yourself as an older person, you're bringing a bit more certainty into your brain about what that might look like. So, you know, you're imagining yourself at 80. Well, what you're starting with there is that you're imagining you're still alive. Mm-hmm. You're imagining all the things that you would have done between this age and that age. And of course, even though we're really good at beating ourselves up, we ideally will hope that we'll be really proud of all the things that we've achieved. And then I think with the writing to yourself when you were younger, it would be about, it's almost like a form of self-parenting. So it's how differently things could have turned out if you had got all the love that you needed, if you'd been protected from potential stressors during childhood. And I think that makes you feel like the best version of yourself, you know, kind of imagining, because no one teaches anyone how to be a parent, and not everybody, you know, people don't get everything right, but with you imagining being the parent to yourself as a child is like a huge opportunity for forgiveness. What's underlying all of this is that the brain must be moving into a state of bonding and attachment, which correlates to the hormone oxytocin, which is released during childbirth and breastfeeding and when you're in love, and even in like sort of social groups and work teams and stuff, it's the bonding hormone. And it correlates with the emotions love, trust, joy, and excitement. That's very different to the state that one can easily find themselves in day to day, which is the fright or flight, which correlates with cortisol and is much more to do with emotions like fear, anger, disgust, shame, and sadness. So it's a little mindful moment when you write the Dear Me letter that you can operate from your highest self, from your most loving, trusting, excited brain.
What's the impact of the lottery, of this element of chance where you don't actually get to pick, that some aspect of fate is running the show?
There's a potential positive or not so positive reaction around surprise. So that's where this is coming in, because there's an element of surprise. So the emotions that I mentioned earlier, fear, anger, disgust, shame, and sadness, correlate with the stress hormone cortisol. And then joy, excitement, love, and trust correlate with oxytocin, but surprise correlates with noradrenaline. That can augment the feelings on either side, one way or the other. There would have been a moment of uncertainty in the brain, and the brain doesn't like uncertainty, but then once the surprise is over and you've got your number, then it's all, let's be excited about that.
Psychology professor emeritus Dr. Jamie Pennebaker from the University of Texas was also confident the Dear Me process could have a therapeutic effect. He helped answer questions about whether sharing the letter was necessary and some other potential benefits.
I'm fascinated by this concept. It's a really creative strategy, getting people to look at themselves from different perspectives. What my research deals with is called expressive writing, and the idea behind it is we ask people to come into the laboratory, and by a flip of the coin, they're asked to write either about an upsetting experience, something that has weighed upon them. It could be a trauma, it could be any kind of major upheaval that they ruminate about, they worry about, they think about too much, or that we ask them to write about a superficial topic in our controlled experiments. In this expressive writing about the emotional upheavals, what we find is that when people write, they start to look at this traumatic experience they've had from a broader perspective. They start to see things that they didn't see before. They may have had a major trauma a year ago, and they think about it all the time, but they've never stopped and put it all together. They've never looked at it from this more detached, almost third-person perspective, and they're able to make a story out of it. They're able to bring it all together. And after they do this, there have been many studies on this. We find that people sleep better, they think more clearly, they have more greater working memory. There's all sorts of memory kinds of studies that have been done, and they are physically healthier over the next several months after doing this. So expressive writing is something that helps people to bring this upsetting experience together and give it some kind of meaning. And I look at what you're doing, and it's a very similar process.
How important do you think sharing the letter is?
As a researcher, I wouldn't do it because I want it to be theirs. As somebody who is thinking of this in a more community/artistic perspective, I think the sharing is critical. But it's very interesting. They're getting at different issues. My approach is, this is for you and you alone. And your approach is, this is for you and also us. That us is the community, the culture, because what you're asking people to do is something that's profoundly human.
When I shared this proof of concept in a packed local theater, the community responded. They felt the magic and the power of it. Now it was theirs to use. That was November 19th, 2022. All that was left, I thought, was to share the concept more widely. My hope is that people and communities around the world will adopt the Dear Me process for their own well-being. This simple yet profound writing technique, this way to connect with our most empowered and timeless self, was the gift I wanted to share with the world. I could never have imagined that less than 2 weeks later, on November 30th, the biggest threat to writing ever in human history would be revealed.
Large language models like GPT-4 are transforming the AI landscape, capturing the attention, curiosity, and fear of the general public, even prompting calls to pause development. GPT-4's capabilities are surpassing our expectations and challenging our ideas about learning, cognition.
At first, I didn't register it because I hadn't used it yet. But then I was in a meeting about how to share the Dear Me idea, and someone said ChatGPT could write letters too. So we tried it. We asked this artificial intelligence to write a Dear Me letter. It did, in a few seconds, and it was pretty good. Over time, I put in more prompts. I showed family and friends what it could do. They were shocked too. But now I think about the future for these same kids, so much bigger now. What if they lose the ability to write for themselves? Will they be able to critically think in the way that writing enables? To access that power? How will they know themselves? Dr. Pennebaker was not so concerned.
Let me put a more positive face on that. The vast majority of humans over the course of world history have never known how to write, but they've still been able to tell their stories. The ability to communicate to other human beings has always been a central feature of who we are. And whether we did it through the written word or the memorized word or the poems that we learned from our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, I think the story side is still going to be there. That we're not going to be blundering idiots walking around with cell phones and have our cell phone talk to each other's cell phone without being involved. I think that human interaction is here to stay. One of the few things I feel pretty confident about.
And Dr. Swart also offered some faith in humanity.
I totally see where you're coming from, but my view is that I trust us as humans. And we've been through the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, where I'm sure people were saying the same things, like everyone will be out of a job and the world, life will change completely. But we survived those, so I'd like to think that we can survive this.
I can't say I'm that optimistic. I wonder if this ability that I've built my life on might go away in the coming AI revolution. I see the future, how this is going to change things. I think within a generation, maybe two, people won't know how to write. I think about our relationship to the land. Just over 100 years ago, most people could grow, cook, and store their own food. Now we can't survive without grocery stores and supply chains. I hypothesize that writing will go the same way. We will come to depend on an external for writing. Just look at the way people depend on their smartphones. Could you live without yours? I hope I'm wrong. Maybe there will be some kind of renaissance. But things do fall apart. Skills disappear. Competencies go away. Use it or lose it. In 7 to 15 years, I don't know if the general population will be able to write anymore. I imagine people will entirely depend on AI to write for them, conceiving their future, reframing their past, and maybe even defining their present. It will think for you. This is as great a change to humanity as we have ever known. So now, when I ask you to consider writing a Dear Me letter, I ask you in a way I couldn't have predicted. This sweet project has become something else, something more urgent. I ask you to write your Dear Me letter now, while you still can, while your loved one still can. Collect your own thoughts and write them by hand. And no matter what happens next, you'll be glad you did.